My name is Brendan Dubry, and I'm the founding director of the Sustainable Kazakhstan Research Institute at Narxoz University and co-chair of the Prime Eurasian chapter. I'll be moderating for today's discussion. We are gathered here with a diverse group of stakeholders, including business leaders, policymakers, civil society representatives, and academics, all united by a common goal: to foster responsible business practices that can drive positive social change across the region. Today, we aim to explore key topics such as ethical governance, environmental sustainability, and social responsibility. I encourage each of you to share your perspectives openly and engage in the constructive dialogue. Together, we can pave the way for a more responsible and equitable business environment in Eurasia. Let's make this collaborative and an impactful session. Thank you for being here, and let's get started. I'd like to first give the floor to Yerlan Shulanov, who is the provost of Narxoz University, and he will have a few opening words, and then we will give the floor to the Prime Secretariat. Thank you very much. Yerlan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Brendan. Dear guests, good morning. Dear colleagues, students, partners, and distinguished guests, I'm pleased to have you all here to discuss a very meaningful and important event that Narxoz University has the honor to host, Solve Climate by 2030. There is no coincidence that this event takes place the year of an important yet frightening milestone. The Copernicus Climate Change Service noted that this year the running global average air temperature exceeded 1.5 Celsius for the first time. This meets the maximum temperature change limit mandated by 2015 Paris Agreement. The sense of urgency could not be greater. The global climate estimations predict that without governments adopting significant greenhouse gas reducing policies worldwide, warming is expected to reach 4.1 to 4.8 Celsius above pre-industrial by the end of the century. Sometimes statistics like this can sound just like numbers to us, but if realized, such a rise in global temperatures would have catastrophic impacts on virtually every aspect of human life with one generation from now. This is why the time to act is now. Narxoz University wants to start locally by taking action right here on university level. In 2021, our academic council passed the Sustainable Narxoz 2030 strategy, setting out a comprehensive list of goals and targets to advance the 2030 agenda of sustainable development and making climate action and education a top priority. We also created one of the leading sustainability research institutes in Central Asia, the Sustainable Kazakhstan Research Institute, SKRI, whose mission is to assist Kazakhstan in support of implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals through applied research led by Dr. Brendan Dubry, which you will hear from today. We have developed courses on climate change and renewable energy, and to work to integrate climate change content into our curriculum across the schools. We also engage students with the creation of the University Student Sustainability Initiative that seeks to engage students all over Kazakhstan on SDG action, including goal number 13, climate action. And in 2022, we ranked 430 in environmental sustainability by the QS World University Rankings. These efforts are important. Nothing, however, can replace sound climate change policies on a national and regional level. The government of Republic of Kazakhstan has taken on bold commitment under the Paris Agreement of a conditional target of reducing emission by 25% below 1990 levels by 2030. Now there is another chance to act. The 2024 United Nations Climate Change Conference, also known as COP29, is the 29th United Nations Climate Change Conference. It is scheduled to be held in the city of Baku from 11 to 22 November 2024. This conference parties are expected to commit to enhanced ambitions for the mitigation and adaptation to climate change. The urgency of international action is this year could be not greater. This is why our event and discussions here today are timely and important. Our event is co-organized by our very special partners that RME Eurasian chapter, RME Global Secretariat, UNESCO, the European delegation to Kazakhstan, Regional Environmental Center for Central Asia, Kazakhstan, and Bard College. This embodies the spirit of collaboration and cooperation needed to solve pressing global challenges like climate change and more broadly sustainability. We plan on hosting this event annually at Narxoz University with the support from our partners to continue this important dialogue on a yearly basis. Today, we aim to facilitate dialogue between academia, students, civil society, and the government of Kazakhstan as regards national preparations to 29th session of the Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Through joint collaboration and communication together, we can help create our common future right here in Eurasia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yerlan. You had many very important points that you touched upon. Thank you for your contribution. We appreciate the support. Now I'd like to give the floor to Sophie Kaki, who is very much a good partner for our university. And we collaborate with her on PRIME. And we are honored to have her here today. She's the Manager of Engagement for the Global Secretariat of PRIME under the Global Compact, apologies. Sophie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Brendan. I'll just share a few slides quickly here. Once again, I want to thank our partners who are collaborating on this event with us. I represent PRIME, or the Principles for Responsible Management Education, an initiative of the UN Global Compact. And as Brendan said, my name is Sophie Konsky, and I am the Manager of Engagement. So I just wanted to share a little bit more about PRIME for those that may not be as familiar with the initiative as others here. I do see some familiar faces, so welcome if you are a signatory member of PRIME. And if you're hearing about PRIME for the first time, I'm happy to give a brief overview of what we do as both a framework, but also a community and a network of responsible educators, and really why we're here today and why we are acting as a convener with our partners for this special and important topic. So a little bit about PRIME. So again, it stands for the Principles for Responsible Management Education, and we often refer to ourselves colloquially as the academic branch of the UN Global Compact. We were founded in 2007, and we aim to raise the profile of sustainability in business education around the world. So that extends to, of course, management and responsible leadership education worldwide. This is a little bit about our network. So again, a lot of you here will be a part of this or adjacent to this. Our network is over 850 signatory members currently, and signatory members are mostly business schools, management faculties, and a lot of universities as well. So we really focus on that higher education element with the business angle, given our mandate within the UN Global Compact, which works with the private sector, of course. Those members account for about 3 million students worldwide and about 200,000 faculty. We're in over 90 countries. We have 17 chapters, so regional chapters, one of which is PRIME Chapter Eurasia, who is our excellent lead and co-host here for this event. And we have working groups as well, which are thematic focused. In the name itself is principles. So these are our principles of responsible management education. And this is the framework that all of our members commit to when they are signing on to PRIME. And of course, it's also what gives us the mandate to kind of discuss and convene for these type of topics. And again, our mission is to transform management education and develop the responsible decision makers of tomorrow to advance sustainable development. And within that, of course, is this multi-stakeholder element, and again, this convener role, which is very similar to the role the Global Compact plays in both driving change in the private sector, but bringing in a number of stakeholder voices to the conversation to really create that systems change. So a little bit about what we do. I'll be brief here, but these are the ways that we actually support our community. That's through equipping for impact, so creating tools and resources to actually transform teaching and learning in responsible leadership. Exchanging knowledge, so creating spaces like this for us to share good practices and learn from each other, and then making measurable progress. This is our accountability piece, where our members are reporting to Prime. So a little bit on the equipping for impact piece, as well as the knowledge exchange piece, and again, the reason that we're here today. So narrowing in specifically on our chapters, our regional chapters, we have 17 around the world that focus on advancing the 7 principles in their specific or particular geographic contexts, linguistic context, regional, cultural contexts. So of course, we're here today with Chapter Eurasia, and very thankful to have them leading on this and supporting ahead of the COP. I will pause there on Prime specifically. If anyone has any questions about Prime, how to get involved, if you'd like to learn more, I'm very happy to share. Of course, in the outcomes document here, we'll share a little bit more about Prime. But just on our reason for being here today, I just wanted to reiterate what Brendan mentioned, which is today we really aim to engage in this multi-stakeholder dialogue. We have academia here today, business, youth, civil society, and governments in the Eurasia region. And we are really aiming to produce a set of recommendations on the future of both responsible business and management education, especially in the lead up to COP29 or the Conference of the Parties, the UN Climate Conference coming in Baku next month. So that's really why we're here today. And we look forward to creating a really concrete outcome here, sharing that with our partners, and really delivering something next month at the Conference of the Parties. So again, thank you to our partners. We have our Global Compact colleagues here from the region, as well as the partners that Brendan mentioned, and I'll let him continue with us as our moderator. So Brendan, back over to you. Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much. And now I have the honor to present our keynote speaker in her new role as Ambassador of the European Union to the Republic of Kazakhstan, Ms. Alexa Simic. And we're very honored to have her here today. She has a very lengthy background in diplomacy and public policy. And so we look forward to her comments on this very pressing and important topic. Thank you, Alexa. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for organizing this event, and thank you for inviting me to this event. And indeed, it is one of the very first events and one of the very important topics that I put also as one of my priorities for my mandate here in Kazakhstan. Since I'm actually quite impressed with the presence here, because I saw somebody saying hello for Uzbekistan, which is fine in terms of timeline, but I also saw somebody from Italy. So it's now 7 in the morning there, and I see the commitment from several participants here, and I appreciate it very much. I also understand why, because as has also been very nicely presented by Mr. Shulanov in the beginning, we are far from, as the world, on the track to actually meet or deliver on the Paris Agreement and on the limiting global warming to 1.5, not even to 2%. As far as the European Union modeling goes, we will actually, with current policies at the global level, particularly as regards the global energy transition, will actually lead to temperature increase of over 3 degrees Celsius. He mentioned even higher numbers, but we are really in a situation where we have to do something. Particularly because Europe, Central Asia, including Kazakhstan, will be among the regions that are expected to bear the most acute effects of climate change. In fact, just before I moved to Kazakhstan, I was working in the cabinet of the European Commissioner for Crisis Management. And the original mandate of the commissioner was mostly to deal with the conflicts. But now increasingly, we have to help countries that are facing the climate disasters. In Europe, in my own home country, Slovenia, we have last year experienced the floods, which have damaged 2/3 of a country. It's a small country, but still, if it damages 2/3 of your country, that's of course devastating. And it has cut 10 billion euro out of the GDP, and that has, of course, not even counting the profits that have been lost because of the economies that have suffered. In Kazakhstan, we have seen the floods that are of record nature in the north this year. So Canada, forest fires. So all of these climatic disasters, unfortunately, are still to continue if we don't do something. We talk a lot, we meet a lot, it's already good that we do that, but as we all, I think today in this seminar and generally are saying that more action is needed. As for the European Union, we have, of course, all the legislation in place. In 2021, the European Parliament has adopted the European Climate Law, which has set the main European Union goal of achieving climate neutrality by 2050 and reducing net greenhouse gas emissions by at least 55% by 2030 compared to 1990 levels. Then at the beginning of this year, the European Commission has published recommendations according to which the EU member states are asked to set some targets for reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 90% by 2040. Of course, the main challenge in the process is to decouple economic growth from the consumption of resources with a high carbon footprint. And therefore, we have to transform our energy sector away from coal and hydrocarbons to sustainable renewable energy sources. In the EU, we have already made significant progress. Today, the renewables are the fastest growing energy sector, but we are far from over. We are probably not only at the beginning of transformation, but I'm happy that we at least began. Energy transition and move from coal requires significant investments. Costs estimated by GIZ for Kazakhstan show that the transition requires investing nearly $610 billion in low carbon technologies over the next 40 years. And most of those funds should come from enterprises and households. There are several things that Kazakhstan will have to do to achieve, to get such an investments. First, Kazakhstan will actually need energy tariff reforms. And an adequate price for the greenhouse gases. Right now, the tariffs are below the cost of energy generation. So first is to cut or to set the adequate price for the greenhouse gases. In the European Union, the key role in setting an adequate price for carbon and for reducing the greenhouse gas emissions is played by the emissions trading system. This mechanism provides strong economic incentive to reduce carbon emissions. It allows businesses to choose the most appropriate ways to achieve their emissions reduction targets while adapting to economic and technological changes. And we in the European Union fully support planned changes to the Kazakh emissions trading systems, which would bring the Kazakh ETS, as it is nicely called in our acronym, and EU ETS closer together. In order to support all those efforts and facilitate fair distribution of the cost of the green transition worldwide, the European Union has also introduced the very unpopular but very necessary carbon border adjustment mechanism. If you have not heard about it, this mechanism is to set the environmental standards for all products that will be coming to the EU market. It came into effect on the 1st October 2023, and it has a 2-year transition period, so meaning that it will end at the end of 2025. And in this transition period, the producers in all countries, including in Kazakhstan, will have to prepare for new conditions for production so that they will be able to sell their products on the EU market. For Kazakhstan, this is an important measure. EU is Kazakhstan's biggest trading partner. So it will have to, the country will have to anticipate what will be required to actually come to the EU market and to be competitive. We also like to argue this is not because of only entering the European Union market. It means that it will be able to be more competitive on the world market. If you have environmentally friendlier products overall, if you take green trends into your own production, of course, you are also competitive on the world market because increasingly the new generations are looking also into how green the products are. So this is something that we will all have to do, and we will all have to adapt. I am not saying that the European Union is good in that, but we are following the trend, and we hope that Kazakhstan will too. It has also been the upcoming COP29 event in Baku has also been mentioned. It is a great opportunity to mobilize our efforts to agree on new collective quantified goals, to mobilize finance for cutting emissions and enhancing resilience in developing countries from public and from private sources. We know that the $100 billion per year target is far from being reached. You will remember that this has been decided at one of the previous COPs that we will help the developing world. EU remains the main contributor, but of course, more contributions are needed for the developing world to adapt. In Baku, we also hope to adopt further guidance for high-integrity international carbon markets. We will call on all countries to submit their biannual transparency reports by the end of 2024, and we will call on all parties to come forward in their next NDC with ambitious economy-wide emissions reduction targets covering all greenhouse gases. In Kazakhstan, I understand the preparation for COP29 is ongoing, and this is another opportunity to think about the concrete plans, and I'm sure that some of them may be discussed at the seminar today. We, of course, I mentioned constantly that we will be there to stand and assist Kazakhstan and the countries in the region in general, but also countries around the world with our Global Gateway program. In that we have several Team Europe initiatives, particularly in the green agenda and in the green transition. Concretely, as far as Kazakhstan and Central Asia is concerned, we have launched together with the EU member states and our Central Asian partners, 20 million euro Team Europe initiative on water, energy, and climate change. And a large part of the program focuses actually on a regional energy cooperation to enable a better integration of renewables. We also work on integrated water resources management because we all know water is a huge challenge here in the region, so that we can have more rational, effective, and efficient use of transboundary waters in Central Asia. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends, no change or transformation is easy, particularly if it touches our individual comfort. But the next generations will never forgive us if we don't start now. And here in this country where we have so many children running around, I know that the next generation is very much looking at what this generation is doing. It is already too late, but let us not lose any more time. Thank you very much. And as Kazakhs would say, Rahmet. Good luck with the seminar.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. You had an excellent speech, and I think there is a lot that the European Union is doing that we can learn from and apply here in Eurasia. So your speech was very relevant and important for our conversation here today. So now what I would like to do is to go to the panel discussions, just to give you a quick summary of what the next part of our online event will be. Part one will be a panel which will include government, business, and international organizations and their thoughts on what can be taken to COP29. And then we will have a questions and answers session after the panel where the audience can participate and to ask questions to the panelists. Then we'll have a 5-minute break, and then we'll have another 45-minute session which will focus specifically on academia and what academia would like to see as particular policy stance that Central Asian and Eurasian countries more broadly can take to the COP29 negotiations and beyond. Then we'll have a wrap up and we will summarize some of the key points and to try to shape what this outcome document will look like based on the results of the two panels and the keynote speech from the ambassador. And then at the end, we will summarize all that and in the following week, share it with participants and also with governments in Eurasia. So thank you very much for that. And we can now start with the panel. Our moderator for the panel is Samir Mamadov. We're very honored to have him as a moderator for this panel. He's head of the UN Global Compact. He's the country manager there from Azerbaijan. So we wanted to also make sure we had our Azerbaijani partners, since they're hosting the COP this year, to be involved in our Eurasian conference. So we're very happy to have him here today. And Samir, the floor is yours, and I'll let you moderate the panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brennan. Honors all mine. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. I see a lot of we're covering pretty good set of different time zones, and some are sleepy because it's time to go to bed. Some just woke up. Again, this is an honor, distinguished speakers to open the event, but also amazing set of panelists, both panel one and the following two panels. Briefly, speaking to business leadership, it becomes clear immediately that the desire is there to be actively engaged in both climate action, but broader corporate sustainability issues. What seems to be homogeneous is the lack of skills, but also the culture to actually implement that. And both of that seem to root from education, not only MBAs, not only higher education, but secondary, and a lot would argue preschool education as well. So I think there is no better time to have this discussion from multiple angles, including this particular panel that looks into the issues from the private sector, international organizations, and academia and government angles. Without much delay, if you don't mind, I will invite our distinguished panelists to open with brief presentations before we go into Q&A. I again have the honor to share this panel with Ms. Meyyul Alpizbayeva, Educational National Professional Officer at UNESCO, based out of Almaty, covering Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. Yulia Yakubayeva, Chamber of Commerce of the Republic of Kazakhstan. Yulia is also the chair of the working group of the Chamber on Sustainability. Zamzam Ibrahim, board member of Students Organizing for Sustainability UK, and Irina Bekmirzaeva, Climate Change and Sustainability Energy Program Manager for Regional Environmental Center for Central Asia. Meyyul, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Samir. Good morning, colleagues, partners, participants. It's very nice to be here, and I'm pleased to present what UNESCO is doing, UNESCO's initiatives in the area of climate change education. And using this opportunity, I would like also to thank all the organizers. I hope you can see my presentation. Great. So my presentation will consist two parts. So I would like to share more about the Greening Education Partnership of UNESCO, and then quickly about the key findings from the Central Asia Climate Change Education Ambition Review that UNESCO Almaty office conducted with partners. As previously all the speakers pointed out, the climate issue is very urgent, and we need to solve it now. And as part of the education for sustainable development concept, the concept which is more known for, I think, education stakeholders, UNESCO started prioritizing greening education concept, which is about the climate change education. And it gives learners the knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes to address interconnected global challenges. And it's part of the SDG 4.7 target, and it covers from early childhood education to higher education and adult education. So it's a lifelong learning process, and it's considered as an integral part of quality education because it's competency-based education, and this focuses on the development of the 21st century skills and enhances the cognitive, social-emotional, and behavioral dimensions of the learning. And it's also has a systemic approach or institutional approach that we call, when UNESCO and partners promote ESD or greening education concept, we don't talk about it as an add-on or additional subject, but we talk about it as a cross-cutting or transversal competences. So they should be along the content, all subjects, all education programs, but also in teacher training programs, in the learning environment itself, at educational management level, and of course community level as well. And this is also directly linked with the SDG 13 on climate action, and particularly its target 13.3, which is focused on improving education, awareness raising to mitigate climate change, impact reduction, Why the focus is on climate change and greening education right now, because UNESCO conducted this review of curricula in 85 countries, and over 500 natural and social science curricula were analyzed. And it was found that 69% of science and social science curricula contained no references to climate change, and cognitive learning prevails over social and emotional, as well as behavioral learning. So much of the content actually focuses more on cognitive, theoretical part rather than the social-emotional competences and the action-oriented methods. And of course, there was also a teacher survey, which also found that although there can be some topics on the sustainability and climate change, but 69% of the teachers, they acknowledge that they don't use it in their teaching. And just using this opportunity, I also wanted to share that the UNESCO and the Finnish embassy here in Kazakhstan supported also the analysis of the curricula, which was conducted in 2020 by the National Academy of Education, and it was led by Narxoz University, particularly by Brendan. It actually found that the SDGs that are listed here, including the climate action SDG, are not directly integrated, for example, on the natural science subject, which you would assume that the most of the topic would be covered in this subject. And then the other SDGs, including the climate action SDG, were indirectly reflected only in one learning objective. So this led to the further work that Narxoz University and the Academy of Education done further on the ESD curriculum integration. And you can see here that currently a lot of work has been done, and it was approved and part of the curricula right now, and not only on natural sciences subject, but also like in all throughout all subjects in secondary education. I think it should be noted here that unfortunately such analysis were not conducted in other countries of Central Asia due to limited resources, and this work of course is pending, and we are doing our best to actually find more resources to do similar work, because it's very important to address the sustainability and of course the climate change issue. Just to go back to the Greening Education Partnership that UNESCO started, actually it was launched last year during COP28 in Dubai, and currently there are 87 member states and more than 1,300 organizations and 11 UN agencies. So there are international, national partners, and this partnership works on 4 action areas for transformative education. So the main goal of this partnership is to get ready every learner for climate change, and it works on these 4 pillars. First is a greening curriculum, focusing on greening education curriculum through this lifelong learning approach. So it's not only focusing on school education, but also early childhood, higher education, adult education, non-formal, informal education. The second pillar is greening schools. So it's about the green standards for schools. Again, it's not about the secondary schools, but also higher education institutions and other education institutions. The third pillar is greening teacher training, so capacitating the teacher education, teachers on greening education. And the fourth pillar is greening communities. So it's more about working on greening skills with the communities through lifelong learning approach, non-formal education, youth empowerment. Currently, 3 Central Asian partners countries joined the partnership, except Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan's participation is currently pending. Due to limited time, I'm not going to share more about this partnership. But by scanning the QR code, you can learn more about it and reaching out to the contact listed here. But just before going to the climate change education ambition review report, I wanted to quickly share about the work that this partnership does. So one of the pillars, as pointed out, is greening education curriculum. And the second one is green school standards. So under these 2 pillars, the partnership produced 2 technical guidance documents that actually define a common language for greening education. So the first one is a greening curriculum guidance, and the second one is green school quality standard. And the curriculum guidance actually gives this comprehensive vision on what is climate change education, and then has this holistic approach for education for sustainable development, considering social, environmental, and economic issues of climate change. And it has these learning objectives and topics by the age categories. So starting from age 5 and ending with 18 plus age, so covering higher and adult education. And it has particular principles and strategies. I'm not going to also stop on that. I'll share my presentation, and you can also scan the QR codes here and learn more about the publication and guidance here. But just an example, so on the guidance, curriculum guidance, there are topics and then learning outcomes given, and then the exemplary subjects. So as I told, we are not talking about the sciences or biology or particular subject here. We are talking about all subjects. So it's a transversal, cross-cutting competency and topic. And the second guidance that was published is on greening every school. So it gives concrete steps to integrate sustainability principles and climate action into every aspect of school life. And its goal is to align the accreditation schemes, existing accreditation schemes, with the greening standards. So the UNESCO will share with the countries the list of the accreditation schemes aligned, and then the countries can adapt and adjust these into their own accreditation quality assurance systems. And as I said, it's very much also linked with COP28 and now COP29 and 30, because there is a monitoring and evaluation done through the partnership process. So the collective work that is being done under this partnership by the countries, by the partners, it's all collected and then shared at the event. So at the upcoming COP28, there will be a separate session on greening education partnership as well, and where the progress of the countries will be shared, because this partnership has these ambitious goals under their each pillar. For example, on the greening schools, they aim to green 50% of the schools by 2030. So this is just an example, but it has these ambitious goals on greening education under each pillar. And just quickly stop on the regional climate change education ambition review, because I know that I have very limited time. So this study was conducted by our office in cooperation with Central Asia Policy Studies, CAPS-UNLOC. It's a non-governmental organization, previously known as Source Foundation. And this study was also conducted in partnership with McGill University in Canada, where its purpose was to analyze plans and ambitions in the field of climate education in 4 Central Asian countries: Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. and to provide a basis for advocacy to include compulsory climate education as part of the overall education for sustainable development concept by 2030. I'm not going to stop on the methodology, general context. I will share the link to the report. So I think you can familiarize yourself, but just to stop maybe on the key trends, challenges, and then on I would like to stop on the key findings. So there is a limited understanding and acceptance of climate education as a concept and central issue in education, although there are a lot of references to it in many major documents, government documents, strategies, but unfortunately it's not prioritized in, for example, education strategies. And climate change education lacks coordinated national efforts. As I told, it's a cross-cutting issue, as we know, and it's involvement of many stakeholders, so not only the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Ecology, Natural Resources, etc. So unfortunately, there is a kind of lack of coordination in terms of advancing climate change education, and there are significant gaps between stated political intentions, ambitions on climate change and the link to education, therefore implementation of the actual climate change education. And the key findings of the report say that political commitment to the climate change education must be expanded because it's very urgent, as we know, and there is a vital need to strengthen the links between education, climate resilience, and climate action. And it would be helpful if climate change education commitments would be included as a central part of the national development strategies. And then I'm not going to stop on each of these points, but maybe just a relation to higher education. Higher education, including teacher education, must take a more meaningful contribution to the development of the local capacity in the field of climate change education and teacher education. So also as part maybe of their third mission, we call the universities, higher education institutions, they should also work on more research, community engagement, and take this responsibility and more actions in this area. And there are recommendations for the government, maybe just to stop on the recommendations for the higher education. So it's recommended to integrate climate education ideas and principles into teacher education, because we know that it starts with future teachers, and then they go and teach to their secondary educations and to their preschool education institutions, and professional development, professional teacher training curricula must be also updated. Higher education institutions should act as training centers, providing opportunities for advanced training for teachers of other universities, particularly in this area of climate action. And they should be open to innovative solutions to climate change, partner with local NGOs to promote educational activities to different audiences. And there are recommendations for schools, for youth, NGOs, international organizations. I think I'll stop here because I think I've taken already much of the time, but thank you very much for your attention, and I'd be happy to answer the questions. Thank you.
Megan, thank you very much for this insightful opening. I mean, there were numerous great examples of actual public and private partnerships, which really is a backbone of our conversation today. I will request the speakers to keep the opening segment shorter so that we have more time left for the Q&A. And with that, Yulia, the floor is yours to hear from the perspective of the Kazakhstan Chamber of Commerce.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me today, and personally, thank you for Brandon for invitation. I'm very pleased to be here today, and Serek already make a presentation. Are you see it? Is it okay? So. A couple of words about myself. Please, next slide. So I'm a partner of GPI Group and the leader of the community of Green Urban. And last year, we found the Council for Sustainable Development and ESG and National Chamber of Entrepreneurs. And I was elected as a chairperson. And as well, I'm a member of the board of directors in some organization. For example, Mukhtarova is of university. So I understand your pain about the green and the climate education. And we try to engage in this process on the floor of the Council of Sustainable Development. And I would like the next slide. I would like to start my presentation from some conclusion of World Economic Forum. In accordance with this, climate and social risks are the biggest global challenges for the next 10 years. And if you look at the next, at the first 5 lines in the second bar, you will see mostly green colored risks. And but if you look at the first bar, you will see the more complex situation, cost of living crisis, erosion of social cohesion and social polarization, geoeconomics confrontation are standing in line with natural disasters, extreme weather events, and failure to mitigate climate changes. We saw it in Kazakhstan this year when the flood hit the region and a huge part of the government budget. So on the next slide, we see that all these risks are interconnected with each other. And one of the biggest circles of the diagram is blue one, called collapse of a systematically important supply chain. Actually, the next slide. What do we mean when we say a supply chain, and why it should be sustainable in current situation? First of all, of course, this different regulations, which was already mentioned today, especially in Europe and the US, when we see the regulation in our partners' countries. And supply chain is a connected network of individuals, organizations, resources, technologies, and activities involved in the creation and the sale of the product. It has now become a crucial part of business growth and development, and consumers are keen to know that the goods they buy are responsibly sourced, both environmentally and socially. And the main agenda of a sustainable supply chain is to minimize the harmful effects of the environment from energy usage, water consumption, and waste production, as well as positively impact the people associated with it. Each business within the supply chain is responsible for completing tasks that directly or indirectly contributing to fulfilling customer requests. And the same as with global risks on the next slide, all corporate risks are interconnected. That's why sustainable chain creates a boost for responsible business, which sounds like within our supply chain, we can request our suppliers to meet our ESG rules. Responsible companies, and I highlighted on the next slide, can even create standards, included ESG metrics. The most frequent requirements, which already said, is most sustainable chain, I highlighted by red. First of all, the suppliers need to prepare climate reporting, starting from measuring their footprint. Saying about human rights, the most important test is how the suppliers meet with the requirements of Modern Slavery Act. Anti-Corruption Act and the Code of Conduct are the important part of corporate government of a company, so their norms should be implemented into suppliers' procedures. I will give you some examples in further slides. So how to build a sustainable chain? There are 5 steps which can help it to do it. First of all, you need to map your supply chain upstream and downstream. You need to try identify your suppliers tier by tier, your communities and stakeholders involved in the process of producing your product or service. Secondly, you need to identify your risks and opportunities. You may discover your suppliers are sourcing from the area with the high ESG risks. And next step, to set goals. It can be emissions reduction goals. It can be sustainable technologies implementation. It can be process transformation or other measuring targets. Next step is to set supplier standards. It should be the rules for your tier 1 suppliers, and you need to ask them to ensure compliance from tier suppliers in turn. And the final step is to monitor and improve. If suppliers are not able to comply with your time frame, switch them to more sustainable suppliers. The next slide, there is an annual list of most sustainable supply chain from Gartner. You can see a lot of familiar brands among these companies. All of them have thousands of suppliers around the globe, but above mentioned approach and digitalization help them to support the image of responsible business. As an example of best practice of sustainable chain approach, I would like first of all to share an experience of Schindler Electric. This company was the leader of Gartner's list last year, and it has built a system of standards called STRIVE program, which wrapped more than 15,000 strong network of main supply chain suppliers. All the suppliers in their turn are responsible for supporting the increased use of green materials of Schindler products, and it's a transition to recycled cardboard packaging only. All these steps persistently stimulate more and more stakeholders along the Schindler supply chain to enhance its resilience. Another good example is Jaguar Land Rover experience. The company asked tier 1 suppliers to set their decarbonization pathway, report transparently, and demonstrate progress towards their targets. This requirement has been shared with Jaguar Land Rover's supply network, totally more than 5,000 companies around the globe. In a nutshell, supply chain management can help to improve continuity of supply chain, to reduce operating costs, to implement innovative and new technology approach into your process, to create a protection mechanism against disruptions, and to organize a better risk mitigation throughout the supply chain, and so on. And on the last slide, I would like to announce that this year we launched the Knowledge Impact Hub for Sustainable Solution. It was founded by Narxoz University, the University of Birmingham, representatives of Green Urban Community and DPI. The key goal of the hub is to create an ecosystem for collaboration in the field of research and implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. We plan to facilitate interaction between the academic community, the private sector, and the government bodies in such spheres as joint research publication, commercialized research projects in the field of sustainable development, curricular development and design, and in general, increase public awareness and engagement in sustainable development of economic sectors, including creative industries. Thank you very much for your attention. And Serek, sorry, the last slide, could you please show about the hub? Yes. No, before this, the slide before, previous. Yes, thank you. This is the hub, which we found and launched. So thank you very much for your attention.
Yulia, thank you very much. I mean, I'm glad we touched upon SMEs and supply chains. As you know, it will be one of the major themes of COP29. It's on a personal agenda of the high-level climate champion. Obviously, the SMEs and supply chains cover between 70 and 90% of the employment and the private sector growth, both globally, but across our region, especially in the Eurasian space. That is the segment that's growing the fastest, and it can be overlooked. I mean, I think a very, very important point was made that the risks and opportunities associated with the supply chain, small and medium business, and entrepreneurs are really interconnected with both the customer, supplier, and the shareholder. And I'm glad we touched that. I'm sure we'll have a bit of a discussion about supply chains, sustainable supply chains in particular. Thank you very much, Yulia. With that, I'd like to invite for the opening statement Irina from the Regional Environmental Center of the Central Asia. I know the center well. I know the tremendous work that they're doing. The floor is yours.
Good morning, dear colleagues. Thank you for invitation for this important event. Let me start from introduction first. My name is Irina Bekmirzaeva, and I'm the Climate Change and Sustainable Energy Program Manager at the Regional Environmental Center for Central Asia, or CAREC. Today, I will share with you the initiatives and contributions CAREC has made in addressing climate changes in Central Asia, as well as how we are preparing to participate in key international climate processes, including the upcoming conference of the UNFCCC, the Conference of Parties, and crucial role of regional cooperation. Next slide, please. CAREC has been working for over 23 years to improve environmental conditions and build climate resilience across the Central Asian region. We were founded by 5 Central Asian countries, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan, in collaboration with the European Union and UNDP. Our mission is to assist these countries in addressing both national and regional environmental changes. Next slide, please. CAREC operates in 5 key areas: environmental management, education for sustainable development, support for water initiatives, climate change and sustainable energy, and the nexus of environment and health. And for example, our climate change program focuses on both adaptation and mitigation efforts to build resilience in communities most vulnerable to climate impacts. Next slide, please. In addition to that, CAREC facilitates a multi-stakeholder dialogues on different levels. For example, one of the important dialogue platform is a Central Asian climate change conferences. The main objectives of these conferences is to strengthen a regional dialogue on climate change and sustainable development by promoting information and knowledge exchange in Central Asia. For example, the last annual climate change conference was conducted this year in Almaty, and it gathered more than 1,000 participants in person and online, and there was a notable presence of both men and women, with 232 women making up of 45% of attendances, and men comprising the remaining 55. Next slide, please. Another important regional dialogue platform is a platform of parliamentarians and foreign ministries of Central Asia countries to address climate and environmental changes issues. We conducted already 10 meetings of this platform, and this platform plays a very important role in shaping the region's climate and environmental policies. Next slide, please. One of the most notable achievements is the creation of a robust network of non-governmental organizations, NGOs, dedicated to climate action in Central Asia. This network was launched during the Central Asian Climate Change Conference in 2019 in Tashkent, and has since provided a platform for civil society to actively engage in the global climate discourse. Next slide, please. Here you can see the creation of NGO, 5 Central Asian countries. Thank you. Next slide. Next slide is devoted to the results of the Conference of Parties, 26th Conference of Parties, which was conducted in Glasgow, Scotland. And Central Asia has become increasingly involved in global climate consultations, and CAREC has been at the forefront of representing the region on platforms such as Conference of Parties. Our countries now participate as a united bloc, promoting shared goals and emphasizing the unique climate challenges faced by the region. Here you can see the results of, it was for the first time in the history of the UN climate change convention that all 5 Central Asian countries united at the COP platform and presented United Voice of Central Asia. The slogan of this regional pavilion was one voice, one region, one voice. And the main results of this regional pavilion was submission of 3 regional statements on behalf of government. The second statement was on behalf of youth, and the third statement was on behalf of NGO from all 5 Central Asian countries. Also, the most significant result was creation of Center for Climate Action Transparency in Central Asia. It established under the auspices of CAREC. And due to these activities, CAREC Central Asian region became visible on international arena of such an important events as Conference of Parties of Climate Change Convention. Next slide, please. CAREC also played a crucial role in preparing the region for COP27, which was held in Egypt. Central Asian countries again presented a united front, emphasizing the need for increased climate finance, particularly for adaptation projects and technology transfer to enhance the region's resilience to climate change. And again, 3 statements on behalf of 5 Central Asian countries were presented at the regional pavilion. 1 statement from the government, 1 from NGO, and 1 on behalf of youth of 5 Central Asian countries. Next slide, please. As we prepared for COP28, which took place in the United Arab Emirates last year, we are strengthening regional cooperation on key issues such as water management and ecosystem restoration. These issues are crucial for regional security, given the shared natural resources that cross national borders, such as rivers and mountains. Next slide, please. And all 5 Central Asian countries were headed by 5 presidents of Central Asian countries. And we know that this year also all 5 Central Asian presidents will participate at COP in Baku, Azerbaijan. Next slide, please. And Central Asian Pavilion at COP28 was conducted 44 side events during 2 weeks of COP, 36 meetings, more than 270 representatives of government bodies of Central Asia and other countries took part in our pavilion, representatives of more than 30 international organizations, and in total more than 400 participants participated in the pavilion events. Next slide, please. And looking ahead to COP29 in Baku, CAREC is working for further elevate Central Asian role in the global stage. This year, each country of Central Asia of our region will present its own pavilion, national pavilion, showcasing how national and regional initiatives are contributing to the global fight against climate change. For example, Uzbekistan will highlight its efforts in renewable energy development, while Kazakhstan will showcase its work on carbon markets. The overreaching goal of COP29 will be to harmonize national strategies and ensure that Central Asia can effectively attract international climate investments. Next slide, please. And in conclusion, CAREC remains committed to supporting Central Asian countries in their efforts to adapt to and mitigate climate change. Our work continues to focus on fostering regional cooperation and building resilience in the face of increasing climate risks. We believe that by working together as a region, Central Asia can overcome the challenges of climate change and secure a sustainable future of its people and ecosystems. Thank you for your attention and look forward to your continued support in these critical efforts.
Irina, thank you very much. This was very insightful, especially the point that we touched upon partnerships not only across multiple disciplines, but also synergies across the Central Asian region. Importantly, what CAREC does is it also spreads across numerous sustainable development goals, and not only climate action, which, especially as we approach COP29, it is important to remind ourselves that sustainability, especially multi-sectoral commitments to sustainability, go beyond climate action and cover a variety of subjects, including health, including transparency and governance, and of course the SDG 17 in partnership. Thank you very much. With that, if you allow, I'd like to open with a question. Although some of my questions are towards particular content that we heard from the panelists, I would open the question to voluntarily to all panelists that would like to respond. So first one is, I think it's very intuitive one, is that the clearly climate action relies on quality education. Again, I want to repeat myself when I reference education. It is not only higher education; it is secondary and preschool education, with the vision of not only creating skills but also creating culture of sustainability. Breeding generations of future leaders, public sector leaders, business leaders, as well as the international organizations. And at the same time, education in itself, in many cases, relies on partnerships. I think we all are familiar with the example of vocational training schools. That those schools that work closely with the private sector turn up to generate a more on-demand professions and on-demand skills. But then the question is, I mean, we heard from Yuri, in fact, in every presentation we heard very clear examples of third party, if you would, whether private sector, international organizations, UNESCO, CAREC, chambers of commerce, projects and contributions to improve educational practices around the climate action. But the question is, how do we mainstream this? How do we make sure that these inputs, that these contributions are not project-based, are not snapshots, and are not left behind in an upcoming academic year? So if starting with Meygul, perhaps we could touch upon legacy and sustainability of sustainability education of itself.
Yes, sure. I think it's a very important question of the sustainability, but also the integration of the education for sustainable development into the curricula and educational process. So you're right, many times it's like more of a one-time event or activity or project. So I think that's why it's very important to actually integrate these topics, these learning objectives and competences into the formal curriculum and into the teacher training, as I said, like a more of a systemic approach and institutional approach when, and there is also approach called whole institutional approach when it's not only at national level, at the government level, but also the educational institutions itself, like universities, schools, they also adopt these important topic and principles into their management, into their mission, vision. So I think that's when it will take a real critical role to actually advance this important topic and lead to actually to tangible results, because I think when not only it's from top down, but also bottom up, when also the education institutions, teachers, the communities, they also take part in this. I think it's will have its own results. While, for example, UNESCO, international organizations like UNESCO, we of course provide this kind of a foundation. So with the initiative Greening Education Partnership, which actually have already the standards, the guidance, you can just take and use it, adapt it, and it's all available actually. So just I think these efforts at institutional level, at leadership level, would be necessary. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Megur. Yulia, you wanna come in on this question?
Yes, I would like to add something. I completely agree with Mirgul, but we as well work with the private sector, and I can say that only big companies such as financial institutes, semi-government institute, and maybe mining company, oil company, and so on are engaged now in the agenda. And even for them, we need to explain that the ESG agenda, SDG agenda are not only about environment, that it's as well a big scope of social and corporate steps that they need to do. And that's why we try to organize for them different trainings. And I know many colleagues from UI Academy and other Big Four Academy, consulting, and other companies. We try to spread their knowledges to them, and we have different forums and meetings to spread our knowledges and to change different questions in this sphere. And as well, I understand that the regulation in this sphere is very helpful, especially in financial sphere. They try to make regulation not only for a financial institute, but for their clients as well. Through the ESG risks, they try to how can I say, to build a timeline for the clients to attend the results in ESG sphere. So I think it will be very helpful.
A very important point. Thank you very much, Yulia. In fact, a message that we try to convey to the private sector is that sustainability should not be a sentimental issue for a private sector, but very much an operational one, whether in better managing their risks, in improving their bottom line in terms of profitability, or better managing their costs. Of course, the themes of sustainability change from an industry to industry. So, you know, for say financial sector, for the banking sector, it is of course an instrument to assess the risks. For say oil and gas industry, it is really, you know, managing reputational damage. It's building future opportunities to transition to alternative and renewable sources of energy. No, absolutely. You know, point well taken. Irina, would you like to come in on this?
Yes, I can say a few words. As a recommendation to education sector, we can propose that such regional organizations, NGO organizations on national level, on regional, such as CAREC, should be more active, and education sector could involve CAREC into promotion of greening education, as I said, on national and regional level, as CAREC has subdivisions in each 5 Central Asian country. And we have a strong capacity on education for sustainable development. So our recommendation is to attract more NGO sector to promoting green education.
Thank you. From presentations this morning, it is clear that the community-based organizations, non-governmental organizations, have not a symbolic but very practical role to play in the process. With in relation to your remarks, Irina, I'd like to actually transition to a question from audience. Adilbek Manavov is posing, I think, a very relevant question. Is that, what are the main barriers to achieving stronger regional cooperation on climate action, particularly in Central Asia? I think the question covers really not a particular sector collaboration, but rather business to business, government to government, and civil society to civil society organizations. So what slows down collaboration in this area across Central Asia and broader Eurasia?
I think each country has its national priorities. Yes, each country has their priorities, and it is need time to find consensus. But I think that it is possible, but it needs some time.
Is that it is possible, but is that also significant, important? Is there will it extrapolate the action, you think?
I think yes.
Okay, thank you. Megil, Yulia, you wanna come in on a cross-border collaboration on climate action?
Yes. I think one of the main barriers is funding. So there is not always funding available for such cooperations, although I think there is a very great will for countries to collaborate, to share with each other the experiences, etc. One of the functions of the UN and UN agencies and also UNESCO is actually to provide such a platform for cooperation. So as a regional office, we try to organize such platforms, such regional events, but of course it's also limited. So this was also one of our suggestions for recommendations from our report, that there should be a stronger regional cooperation, because some of the issues are very, joint, common. And I should maybe share here that actually by our support, there is a Central Asia Alliance on Climate Change Education, which is newly formed last year. And it combines all education stakeholders that work on climate change education. So if you are interested, we can also you can also join if you're working in this area, and we provide this platform to actually discuss, to come together all the issues related to actually integrating climate change into education. So that's we call it САКО. It's from Russian Центрально-Азиатский альянс по климатическому образованию, but it's this alliance that I just talked about. Yes.
Thank you very much, Yulia.
So I would like to add about different level of maturity in this question between our country and, for example, European countries. For example, it's a much more higher demand from the community for such steps from the companies. For example, our suppliers in European countries are having demand for sustainable steps from the companies. But Kazakhstan, for example, suppliers doesn't have such high demand for these steps for the company. And that's why our company think, okay, we can try to give us some time, and we will look around, and we don't do anything in this sphere. That's why I think we just need to push them a bit by regulation steps, by other things, and I think that the cross-border regulation will do their work anyway.
Thank you very much. As much as this engaging conversation makes me want to request the organizers to give us, additional time, I won't do that because then they'll slide our entire event. Yeah, with that, thank you very much, dear speakers. I mean, the host, Brendan, Excellency, Ambassador Simkic, dear President, Kazahmet, thank you very much for this engaging conversation. I just got a note that the recording of this will be shared with all the participants, which means you'll get both the content and also the discussion. Thanks very much for being with us, and good luck for the rest of the event. Oh, and of course, we're looking very forward to hosting all of you in Baku in November.
Thank you, Samir, very much. So just to mention a technical issue, we have a very short 5-minute break before the second panel begins. So grab your coffee or do whatever you need to do, stretch a little bit in the next 5 minutes, and we come back promptly at 11:30 to begin the session, 11:30 GMT plus 5, so 5 minutes from now. So
and coffee is
see you
provided.
all.
And
Yeah,
coffee is
see you all
provided,
very
obviously.
soon. Yeah. It's provided virtually. Okay, see you soon in 5 minutes. Okay, welcome back, everybody. It's promptly 11:30, so I hope you had a chance to do your stretching and get a cup of coffee. And now we'll begin a very interesting, equally as interesting panel, which is the panel on academia. And we are honored to have here as our moderator today, Felipe Foret, who works in the Center for Corporate Responsibility and Sustainability in Switzerland. He's also a professor in the graduate programs in sustainability for Bard College, New York, which is also has a soft spot in my heart because my master's degree was from Bard College. So it's great to have Bard College represented here at this very important Eurasian event. So Felipe, not to waste time, I'll give the floor to you and give you the moderator hat to facilitate the session. Thank you very much. Look forward to a productive and interesting panel.
Yes, thank you for this introduction. As a moderator, my first duty will be to ask our panelists to respect time limits. We have 5 speakers today and only 45 minutes, meaning that I would expect to have talks limited to 8 minutes each. And this is because the most important part of our panel is not really what we say about ourselves, but about what we discuss at the end of the session. I would like to also stress the fact that what we say is public in many ways. I am a member of the Swiss Academy of Sciences. We will have a meeting in November, our general meeting. What we discuss today will be reported to my colleagues at the Swiss Academy of Sciences. I also work with colleagues across Europe, with Horizon Europe and so on, meaning that we are very aware that what's happening in Central Asia is close to our hearts in many ways, and not only geographical. And this is also why I would like to keep a global scope to what is originally a regional meeting. And that will be enough as an introduction. May I ask Fariz Asmailzad to give a talk? Fariz is a Vice Rector for External Government and Student Affairs at ADA University in Azerbaijan.
Thank you very much. Good morning, dear colleagues. I hope you can hear me quite well. I am Vice Rector of ADA University. At the same time, I am a Member of Parliament. I have been recently elected into Parliament of Azerbaijan, and I am the Deputy Head of the Education and Science Committee in the Parliament. Well, as you know, Azerbaijan is getting ready to host the COP29 summit. And not only the whole country is getting ready for it, but also the academic institutions are getting ready for it. Our university has hosted many panels and conferences regarding these climate change issues and climate mitigation issues. And we are now in the process of creating a network of Azerbaijani universities, which will, be a big joint effort to educate young population, to educate young generation about climate problems, climate threats. We believe that without universities, without higher education, without general education system, we cannot make a big change because we need to focus on new technologies. So we need to focus on research. We need to focus on behavior of people. We need to educate young generation about the conservation of energy, conservation of resources. So that's why we are leading now an effort to create a network of Azerbaijani universities where universities can work together. They can share resources, they can share projects, they can collaborate, and together we can achieve some progress. Well, Azerbaijan is a small country, so we are not, I would say, the largest polluter in the world, but we are trying to also show some good examples. For example, as of this year, Azerbaijan has signed agreements with Masdar company from Emirates and with Aqua Power company from Saudi Arabia to produce solar and wind energy. So we are a country of big potential of solar energy, solar and wind energy. So we are going to produce this green energy. We are going to transport some of this energy into European countries. We are the Black Sea under Black Sea cable, and we are of course going to focus a lot on energy transition from oil and gas into more renewable energy, and I think we have a big potential for that. Why we are doing this is because climate change is also affecting our country in a sense that we have less and less water in our rivers. We have less and less water in the Caspian Sea. We have big severe problems with agriculture, and many agriculture farms are experiencing the effect of climate change. So we are trying to contribute to these global efforts by focusing on production of green energy, solar and wind energy, and of course hosting this COP summit brings together many countries where Azerbaijan will lead the negotiations and will try to establish a special financial mechanisms for supporting energy transition around the world. One final piece of information I would like to say is that we are working not only with universities, but we are also working with companies, actively working with private sector, government sector, try to create this big coalition on sustainable development. We are also joining the Global Compact project. So this will allow us to teach business leaders, to teach future leaders about the responsibility to protect the environment, to care for nature, to focus on sustainable growth. So I think that our business curriculums, our business schools, and generally our university practices must also change, adapt, and focus on future, focus on how to educate young generation in a sense that they care not only about profits, not only about money, but also about the sustainable development of the planet. So I will stop here, and perhaps there will be some future questions. I will be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much for the presentation. This was indeed very dense, and I'm sure that our audience will have many questions to you. Our next speaker is Shapkov Akhmedov, the director of the Center for Sustainable Development at the University of World Economy and Diplomacy in Uzbekistan. We are leaving Baku and the Black Sea to move to Uzbekistan. Thank you.
Thank you, Philippe, for the nice introduction. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much. Many thanks to also Brendan Dupree, whom I know quite a long time, and we have worked together in the past, and for inviting to this exciting event. And I'm really happy to see also very familiar faces, including the previous speaker, Dr. Faris Manzara. So I'll be quick too. So in talking about the overall education initiatives in Uzbekistan, simply in general, we know that there are the rationale behind the current reformative steps Uzbekistan government is taking towards a more green future and environmental boosting environmental initiatives a lot. It's a big rationale. So one of them is we know that that famous disaster, the shrinking of the RLC, and many other side effects of that, which is driving many transboundary issues, and all these were due to the unfavorable policy which was held in previously during the Soviet during Soviet time in the early years of independence as well. Yet reforms, so-called administrative reforms, also taking really place very intensively in Uzbekistan, so supporting the all ongoing green policy in the country. One of them is the establishment of the Ministry of ecology, and environment and climate change, which was previously Ministry of Natural Resources. And before that, Uzbekistan has the State Committee for nature protection. And to support all these administrative and policy changes, the Ministry of Ecology, Environment, and Climate Change has also established its kind of knowledge arm, which is the Green University, the Central Asian University of Environmental and Climate Change Studies. It was established in 2023, and the first students they received, I think, this year, early in January. So they have diverse bachelor and master studies degrees, bachelors including environmental and sustainable management, environment and economics, ecology and public administration, which basically we can see here the connection with the public policy and private sector engagement. In the same manner, it has also the master degree programs in environmental law, environmental journalism, and sustainable development into sustainable finance. This is basically what is really happening in the education sector, which supports all policies of the government of Uzbekistan through the education, through the knowledge generation processes. And myself, as one who is representing the University of World Economy and Diplomacy and its institute, I can say that our university was established back in 1992, and it prepares professionals for government agencies in the fields of international relations, international economy, and international law. UVET is also paying more attention to its sustainability activities, initiatives. So it has integrated a lot of so-called green courses into both master's, bachelor, and PhD studies. So including green economy, geopolitics of energy, water diplomacy, international environmental law, environmental diplomacy, and introduction to sustainability, to name a few. Beyond that, recently the university has signed a cooperative engagement memorandum of understanding with TIAMI, Tashkent Institute for Irrigation and Agriculture Mechanization Engineers, National Research University. On the launch of double degree program in water diplomacy. And we are now currently, so it will be available from next year, for the year 2025-2026 academic year, and we will be inviting all applicants from Central Asian countries and beyond. Beyond that, within this the university recently conducted summer school for researchers in water diplomats, and also training course on water diplomacy for teaching staff of Central Asian universities in collaboration with diverse international institutions and regions universities. Before that, actually, the university's professors took part in the training on water governance, which was held in Holland, in Delft, the IHE Institute for Water Education. So basically, these are the university's efforts that are really trying to address and to integrate green initiatives and subjects into its activities. The university has also Institute for Advanced International Studies. In that, the institute is kind of a research and knowledge arm of the university and serves many public entities, including President's Office and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Uzbekistan. And it has three important, it has 9 centers, and 3 of them are very relevant to what we're talking about. So basically, Center for Afghanistan and South Asian Studies, Center for Sustainable Development, and Center for Energy Diplomacy and Geopolitics. We are currently working on also to establish a Center for Water and Climate Diplomacy, which will be the foundation for all our activities, educational activities, and also policy reforms in Uzbekistan. This this much I wanted to talk about. So basically, I want to give you a quick information what we are doing in the education sector within the University of World Economic Diplomacy in the Institute for Advanced International Studies. That all our activities are devised to support the government's efforts in taking environmental and green agenda in the country and in Central Asia and beyond. Thank you very much, and I'll be very much happy to continue to talk and to address any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, and our best wishes go to the Institute for Advanced International Studies at your university. We will have many other questions in a few minutes, but for the time being, I would like to invite Abulkan Hamlikan Bagdatuli to give his talk.
Hello, my name is Alim Khan. Yes, at the first, I would like to say that I am a youth climate activist, regional leader at Prime Global Students, and a regional co-coordinator at the Regional Conference of Youth in Central Asia. In November 2022, the global population reached 8 billion. With 1.8 billion people aged 10 to 24, the largest generation of young people in history. These young people and children face unprecedented challenges from social inequities and lack of green skills to the consequences of climate change. In the international process, youth plays the most ambitious, transparent, and honest role. Organizations such as UNESCO, the official youth body under the UNFCCC process, but also strive to influence outcomes, having mastered the language of international climate diplomacy, advocating for increased political will. They continue to challenge leaders and decision makers, even through youth representatives, was officially recognized as a stakeholder only 10 years after the first COP was held. Student organizations at the university also play a crucial role. I believe that giving students the opportunity to self-organize and learn how to influence decision-making process from their university years is essential in mobilizing youth efforts to achieve global sustainable development goals and tackle climate change. I'm also pleased to see the work of platforms like Principle for Responsible Management Education, where students and young professionals gain tools and knowledge to engage in responsible business contributing to global sustainable goals. Prime equips future leaders to integrate sustainability into their professional activities, enabling them to make ethical decisions that support climate resilience. In the future, youth involvement in COP and beyond must be deepened. Youth need more opportunities to participate in process and be equipped with skills in climate mitigation, adaptation, and advocacy. By empowering youth to voice their opinions and utilizing platforms such as Prime Global Students, Narxoz, Youth for Climate, and others, we can ensure that the future generation will be ready to lead the fight against climate change and achieve sustainable development goals. As youth representative from Eurasia, I deeply concerned about the impact of climate change in our region and the efficient representation of youth at all levels and in all areas of climate action. In Central Asia and Afghanistan, youth and children are not sufficiently involved in climate change issue. According to the UNESCO, only 4% of educational programs in the region cover climate topics, resulting in low awarenesses and participation of youth in addressing environment and climate challenges. The methodology of development of youth and children statement from Central Asia and Afghanistan, prepared under the official youth wing of YOUNGO at the UNFCCC, included several case steps, conducting consultations and online survey among youth and children from 6 countries in the region, in their national languages as well as in Russian and English, organizing a regional conference with more than 200 youth representatives from 6 Eurasian countries. Based on my opinion or based on my experience as a member of organizing commitment for this initiative and my role as a youth regional leader in Prime Global Students, I would like to share the recommendation developed by youth during these actions. Develop training programs for educators and enhance capacity on climate and ecological issues. Reintroduce the subject 17 Sustainable Development Goals as a general education credits in an integrated program for all students. Support, fund, and stimulate development of SDG-focused student organization and youth initiatives. Increase funding for climate education for youth and children, including the allocation of grants and educational quotas, support for youth initiatives, and investment in youth-involved research while ensuring inclusive and accessible education at all levels. Furthermore, we, the youth, call for creation of a formal mechanism that guarantees active youth involvement in decision-making process, including the formulation, implementation, and monitoring of national contributions to achieving the Paris Agreement goals. I would also like to add that our team is actively working on advocating for the regional youth statement and these actions. The results and proposals outlined in the statement have been incorporated into the Global Youth Statement and submitted to the UNFCCC Secretariat. Furthermore, the regional statement will be presented by our team at the Joint Children and Youth Pavilion at COP29 this year. These actions and demands will ensure that the voice of youth is at the center of climate policy and their opinions are concerned at all levels. Thank you for your attention. Thank
you. Thank you for your presentation. I'm sorry, I was coughing. Your voice is extremely important. Actually, we're all working for you and for your generation. And at the same time, we propose answers that you must comment on. Not as a participant, but as a designer, as a carrier of innovation and hope, not for your generation only, but the following generation. Climate change is a long-term process. It has crises that have short-term effects, but what we are seeing will continue for decades for the next decades, meaning that the decisions you take now, the actions you take now will have a long-term consequences. I'm going to stop now, and I would like to invite our next speaker to give his talk. Sharwat Elwan Ibrahim comes from the Business Schools for Climate Leadership Africa. Sharwat, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I'll be quick myself. Again, inspired by so many talks in the earlier session and today, and the calls and the calls for action. Everyone's speaking from the heart. I even, relate to Fariz's excitement when it's COP's going to happen in the region and how it affected our, initiative a few years back when COP was held in Egypt. So yeah, similarly, same stakeholders, called from students. We feel exactly the urgent need to react to climate action. And although, again, Marigal put a very nice piece this morning about the role of higher education. And again, my colleagues today talked about that. I'm focusing on the business schools. So Business Schools for Climate Leadership is a global initiative that began in COP26 with a lot of planning, from 8 European schools that thought that we can't do it alone. I think the fastest way to accelerate climate action is to work with other schools and even their competing schools, as you can see from the logos. But when it came to climate, they really came together as faculty, as researchers, as deans, and they launched to be S4CL. core team. We call it the core team. They're not even Europe. They're the original ones. So within the Prime Network, where I'm chapter chair of Africa, and we, again, it's a large continent. It was the first time COP came to Africa. We have very strong stances on just transition and how we asked, we are the most impacted again from climate change, and yet we didn't contribute to the problem. But I mean, that discussion has been in the narrative for quite a while. So everyone in the country, in the region, again, got excited. And we thought that similar to what you guys are trying to do for COP29, a lot of local schools, a lot of African schools came together to discuss the issues and to, kind of put out there the role of business schools. I mean, I love the programs being offered, but a lot of the leadership of the companies in the private sector, and we saw Julia this morning talking about supply chain management. I'm a supply chain professor myself, and it's not easy. I mean, we can talk a lot and we can say what needs to be done, but again, how do we graduate the leadership? How does Ali Khan become the next generation leading the call for climate action in practical way? So we came together at my university in Cairo, again, the deans of 6 schools. So ours was more of a collation of leadership. So 6 African school deans came together to commit to climate action in business schools. So in other words, you should not have undergrads or MBAs speaking the business language for competition, for I mean, SDGs has been part of our curriculum for quite a while, being part of the Prime Network schools. But again, climate focus was the focus of these meetings. And happy to say, I mean, one thing I'm warning everyone who's doing something today, it's very easy to get excited about and hyped up about COP when it's coming to your country or your region, but then you really have to try to keep momentum the years after. And what we've been trying to do again, with a lot of hard work, is that we keep our quarterly meetings. We have annual meetings with the deans again. We begin those meetings with affirmations of how to commit to climate action in our schools. We take stock, we publish reports. We look at what each school does alone, and then we want to walk together, and we reach out to other networks. So we have these meetings, and our one coming up again in light of usually around this time of the year, we're going to Casablanca, one of our partner institutions that are leading the way. Again, we're all 6 schools, everyone's putting their share and working hard to promote the agenda of climate action, which I'm happy to talk about in detail later on. We reach out to our EU partners again all the time. We work with them in different projects. We attend their conferences. They attend ours. We followed suit when COP was taking place in Dubai last year, and we launched again within the Prime Network that Alim Khan belongs to, and myself, COP28. They take different forms and shapes. I have to say, I'm a big fan of commitment. I mean, bottom up is great, but something like this, I really think that school leadership, I mean, I'm talking to Fariz here. If you're talking to other schools, you have to really bring together other members from other schools, top leadership, and get their commitment, and regular meetings, advisory board. There's different formats for collaboration. We're actually talking about that right now. The US has its share because, again, one of the deans moved back to the US, and they're working very hard to offer open source curriculum. So if anyone's interested, I'll be putting in the chat again this link where if you're looking tomorrow to go in and teach a climate course to meet Alim Khan's urgent need, right? You can just go in and reach on this open source networks. What we publish, if you want it, focused on Africa or developing nations or mitigation adaptation talks, you can actually reach out to me, and we have these specific focus areas. So again, my advice again going forward for you guys would be to work very closely with the private sector. And this is something, again, we the power of the network, we need to move fast, right? It's climate action, it's immediate, it's urgent. So the best way to do so is to work within the current networks that exist. We have the, Africa Deans Association, we have the Prime, we have the students, we have the African Academy of Management. So all of these are different partners that we work with. Most importantly, again, what Julia was saying, again, the role of the private sector, they're our main audience. We're graduating leaders of the future. So we always invite them to our discussions, and we always ask them what exactly is missing in the caliber. You have to work carefully. You have to actually train the students and then create the jobs, and then create the jobs and then train the students, and work with research to support that. So we work within all these, very strong, powerful networks to support us, whether it's research, whether it's teaching. We actually have this framework where we developed, again, that every time we sit together or meet every quarter, we take stock on what are we doing in terms of research, teaching events, because again, it does matter. It does, there's a big communication piece missing in the climate. Climate seems like a very non-business talk. It's like someone else's problem, the schools of environment and science. How we bring that to our schools is a very key piece. Innovation and entrepreneurship, and that's where the students come in. We have a piece for that too in our taking stock and reporting. And then we have also, again, how to create jobs and how to work with the alumni. Remember, these schools are 6 top schools in the regions they operate in, including the ones in the Europe. So basically, a lot of people in government and top management, top CEOs of company have alumni relations with these. And it's a very quick win there too. A lot of good tricks I'm happy to share along the way. I'll wrap it up here to not take more time. I'm very happy and looking forward for the Q&A. And I'll put the links in the chat.
Thank you. You have forgotten to tell us what these 6 schools are. Could you give us the names?
Sure, thank you.
Also-
Happy to. All right. So again, the 6 African schools that came together are the American University in Cairo and the ESCA, it's called a School of Management from Casablanca, so 2 from North Africa. We also have Lagos Business Schools from West Africa. We have Strathmore University Business School from Kenya, and we have 2 business schools from South Africa. We have Stellenbosch, which is and Gibbs. And again, as I mentioned, the grad, there is something now, if you want to really move fast, is to build on networks. And all these schools are very heavily networked with partnerships, global partnerships, and student alumni, very prominent in government positions and in top CEOs. And we understand the SME piece. It was discussed this morning, the small and medium enterprises. So entrepreneurship, again, is a very strong nature of the African continent. And we work very heavily in that area too. And we're doing a white paper series to, again, bring out that kind of stuff. We try not to make it as formal as, mission oriented and, what we do. We try to make it really practical, and we're working on that.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Alex Hopp from RME. And he is a leader of the Working Group on Climate Change and the Environment.
Thanks, Philippe, and thanks everybody for being here. I'm just going to share my screen. Just let me know that's okay, yeah? Great.
Yes,
so I'm here representing the Prime Climate Change and Environment Working Group today. But I'll give you a quick overview of them. I wear many hats. This is just one today. So the day job, I'm Deputy Pro-Vice Chancellor of the Faculty of Business Law at Northumbria University, which is here in the northeast of England, Newcastle. I'm in charge of all education, international, all employability, all of those kind of things across the 10,000 students in our faculty. I'm the Prime Chapter Chair for the UK and Ireland chapter. Was sat on that steering group for about 8 years. I'm co-chair of this Climate Environment Working Group, which I'm going to talk about more today. I sit on the Prime Global Advisory Board, and outside of Prime and everything else, I also sit on a committee for the Chartered Association of Business Schools in the UK, and I'm currently Vice Chair of the AACSB Responsible Manager Education Affinity Group. And part of, a bit like Cheryl was saying, part of my reason for being is to get into these networks that exist and influence them as much as I can around the agendas that we're talking about today. So the Climate Change Environment Working Group is led by myself and Professor Petra Moulton-Hill, who's a Professor of Sustainable Management and Education for Sustainable Development at the Nottingham Business School in the UK. We've been doing this since it started, again, which is nearly a decade now, which feels like a very long time. We were configured in the Global Forum in 2015. The Climate Change Working Group is one of 8 Prime working groups. And at the time, it wasn't really working the Climate Change Environment one, so we took that on. Our focus is mainly on climate action, SDG 13, of course, but as I'm sure everybody knows, the SDGs are interrelated, so we do address multiple ones through the work that we do, but primarily through a climate lens. We work predominantly with business schools, helping business academics, helping students understand carbon and climate and how the implications from a business point of view. But we also work quite a lot with business organizations as well, and third sector, local government, etc. So really trying to be that broad church and bring those networks together. And currently we have well over 500 members from 180 higher education institutions across 42 countries that sign up to our newsletter, that get involved, that dip in and dip out of the kind of work we do. And anybody who wants to can sign up and be a part of this network, part of this membership. and we would encourage people to do so. If for nothing else, just to get our lovely newsletter and learn about what's going on in the areas. Main activities we do, I think we're probably most well known for the carbon literacy training that we undertake, which I'll talk about in a minute. We develop policies and strategies, guidelines and playbooks. We undertake research and publish textbooks, and engagement and thought leadership is a really key piece. So I'll take each one briefly in turn. Carbon literacy training. So this is a project that was developed out of the Carbon Literacy Trust in the UK. And what it is, it's a way to kind of get people to understand in a very quick time the importance of carbon literacy, the importance of climate change, the importance of the language that we need to use. It's very unique. There's nothing like it else in the world. It's been recognized at the UN at COP29 in Paris. And it's one of the top 100 transformative action programs for the United Nations. It's aimed at three audiences: those that live, those that work, and those that study. So that's everybody. And the idea is to offer every citizen carbon literacy training. Our take on this. So the way that we develop it, carbon literacy training can be run through a number of different courses. Somebody's got a mic open there. I don't know if we can maybe close that down. The administrators, thank you. It focuses on climate change mitigation and focuses on solutions. We understand that climate change can be quite an anxiety promoting thing, especially for students. So we focus on solutions moving forward. What can we do? What can business do? What can we as individuals do to help solve some of the climate challenges? It's very interactive teaching material, so it's a very good thing to bring into your curriculum. Really gets people engaged. In our version of the climate literacy training that we use, we use the MIT Sloan Climate Interactive Simulation tool called En-ROADS, which is a fantastic way, again, of getting people to think about the challenges associated with trying to mitigate climate change through policies and governmental kind of procedures. And it's a train-the-trainer program. So once you've done the 8 hours of training, you get a certificate. Well, you have to do an assessment, which the Carbon Literacy Trust will assess. And if you are certified, if you pass that, you are certified as climate literate, and you can also then go ahead and develop materials. You can go ahead and deliver the training yourself. So it spreads our reach much broader by taking part in this. Policies and strategies subgroup, something else that we do. So on our website, we gather together kind of resources, things like good practice, environmental practices, policies that universities have, focusing on operational stuff. So often people come to us and they say, look, our school doesn't have an environmental or carbon policy, and we can share a number of those from other schools. And it's a way, again, of kind of demonstrating good practice, helping people develop those policies themselves. We have Mohammed Mazars, our coordinator for that from Nottingham Trent University, and he brings all of that together and presents that on our website. We develop guidelines and playbooks. So a couple of years ago, we launched the Prime Sustainable Travel and Events Guidance, which we led on alongside a group of global stakeholders, from Prime Global students through to Prime champions, understanding how, as internationally focused academics and internationally focused initiatives such as Prime, we do need to travel. We do need to get together face to face quite often, but there are ways that we can do that more meaningfully, more mindfully, and a way that we can try to bring our own kind of practice and demonstrate leadership by doing so in the most sustainable way that we can. We do things like we work together with the Prime Champions on the manifesto on sustainable, or SDG 4, quality education. So really setting out what we as a Prime Champions groups will be doing and how we intend to conduct ourselves. And we're currently working on a Dean's Climate Workbook or Playbook in collaboration with the Chartered Association of Business Schools in the UK and the Australian Deans Business Council. Business Deans Council, always get that acronym the wrong way around. So trying to help deans understand how climate change affects their business from an operational point of view as a business school leader, but also their curriculum and their research, and kind of, again, demonstrating good practice and best practice. And again, a bit like share what we're saying there, trying to get into these networks, trying to influence at a higher level. We have publications. I'll not read all of these out, but you'll get the slides. So we publish as much as we can. And that's a good way for us to bring in academics as well, because research academics predominantly want to have avenues for research and collaboration. And we can reach into our network and put people together from across those 140 higher education institutions. We have a couple of books that my co-chair Petra would not be happy if I didn't promote her book, which is the Handbook of Carbon Management, which is a new edition which has just come out this year. And this is a very good textbook which takes you through ways to teach carbon and climate literacy and greenhouse gas abatement and management in your courses. Takes you through all of the different kind of courses that you might have in a business school, from economics to marketing to finance, and gives you kind of ways to do that. And on the right-hand side, one of my own books, alongside a colleague, Oliver Lash, that some people might know, on responsible business. It's the third edition of this book, fully updated this year with another 8 chapters, including one on climate change for the first time. And again, this is a very practical book for very good for MBA master's students to kind of understand the kind of key terms, the key practices, the key kind of thought leaders in this area. And that book will be out on December the 11th. Engagement, as I said, try to engage as broadly as we can. We work very closely in the UK with Universities UK, which is our umbrella organisation here, Chartered Associated Business Schools, the Australian Business Deans Council. ASCSB, as I said, I'm currently vice chair of the RME affinity group. And so we're at all those events trying to promote, again, carbon literacy, climate literacy, carbon. How do we integrate the SDGs into our teaching? Many of us on this call, many of us who work in the Prime Network have been doing this for a long time, but there are a vast majority of schools that do need assistance on this. Same with the British Academy of Management, European Academy of Management, and the American Academy of Management. So we're always there, and there's always be somebody there that you can engage with. Finally, if you want to take part in carbon literacy training yourself, it's completely free. We have an online version which we run over 5 different sessions. The new one starts on November the 5th, 11 o'clock UK time. You can sign up, you can find that on our website, totally free, and you can become carbon literate yourself and then take it to your school or to your business. We have a website, we have a working group newsletter which you can sign up to and get, and please do engage. We really want to engage with people as broadly as possible. Get in touch with me, get in touch with Petra. We need all the help we do to collectively solve the climate crisis. Thank you. Let's try and stop sharing my screen.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Alex. I wish I could contribute to your book on Dean's climate education. And this is because obviously Deans are in position of power and they may facilitate as well as prevent us from doing our work as climate activists or climate academics. Our panel has 5 speakers, and we have also been asked to answer 5 questions. So maybe I should begin with you, Alex, and ask you again, what role should universities play in fostering a culture of sustainability and climate action among students and future business leaders? And I'm sure that you have a long answer, and we're looking forward to hearing it.
Thanks, Philippe. It is the question, isn't it? And I would say, yeah, I would say universities have a central role in the ecosystem, if you like. It's not just students, not just educating business leaders. I see universities as kind of conveners. You know, we are in our regions, in our local regions, in our international regions, we are these kind of hubs that have access to these broad range of students who will become future leaders, some of them who become future scientists, future policymakers, future politicians. But also we have the businesses that surround us. We have the governments that surround us. We have all of those public sector organizations. And we will bring all those together as a neutral convener sitting in the middle to kind of facilitate that. Multiple different ways we do that. So, for instance, obviously there's the education piece. So it is, well, I can say it's my view. It's not just my view. Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, sustainability should be integrated into everything that we do. Many universities, including my own, have that as part of our core strategy. We've been doing it for nearly a decade in the business school, and it's really interesting when you work in the business school space. Business schools were some of the first to do this, and now many of us are leading projects to expand that out across the entire universities. So working with the engineers and with the humanities departments and with the arts departments to understand how the SDGs relate from a business point of view, but also from their disciplines too. Of course, we're global research leaders. We have access to kind of the world leading professors, the world leading equipment, and we're able to kind of bring our students in and show them that. But the business piece for me, it's about how we kind of engage students with the experiential learning, that kind of problem-based learning approach that we need from the Sustainable Development Goals. So if we're going to solve a problem, what we tend to do in my school is we'll bring in a business leader who can articulate that problem in real world and say, look, this is what we face in my business, in my industry, in my governmental area. We'll put that to the students and say, how do we solve this problem? We'll help the students to facilitate some thoughts or some answers using the kind of theoretical frameworks that we have. And they will then give that back to those leaders and say, this is how we, as students, suggest we might solve that problem. And that prepares them for going into a world of work or a world of policy making or a world of business where they will have to kind of solve those problems themselves. So I think universities, we sit in the center because we have access to all that broad stakeholders, and it's our obligation to prepare our students and future leaders to be able to act on that in the future.
Yes, I agree with you. We sit at the center, but at the same time, we can be a center of tradition and resistance and not of progress and opening.
Yes.
Yes, and that's why we need to educate our own deans and our own university presidents and vice chancellors. I would like now to invite Sherwat to share with us her insights on how academia, and not only elite business schools, how academia can better collaborate with the private sector to ensure research and curriculum development. And here we're speaking about an alignment between curriculum and real-world sustainability challenges as we prepare the next generation for green jobs that may not always be already here.
Very nice. Thank you, Philippe, for the question.
Oh, and Sherwat, please take as much time as you wish. I realize you are the only woman on this panel, and there is no reason for you not to feel squeezed by the presence of our male speakers.
Okay.
And we have time. We have time.
Good. All right. So I'm happy again. It's a very good question, especially that I think it makes a big difference where you sit in the world. So the West, you know, the Western narrative is that private sectors are well established. They have actually voices in the countries, the economies they work in, if you look at the global multinationals. And again, they have influence on government and on private sector and that sense. So if you ask that question, Felipe, in the, you know, in the Northern Hemisphere, you know, what we call the global North, you will get some kind of, okay, let me, you know, go through networks, let me invite collaboration, let me talk to, you know, to employers and let me invite them to my classroom in that formal sense. But what happens is, as you did mention, is that I think the informal sector, or what you call entrepreneurship sector, whether, you know, the way private sector really works in Africa is quite different. It's very entrepreneurial, and companies can stay for a few years before they become that formal. If I teach, for example, 30 students in my classroom, I would say on average 5 to 6 would get full-time employment in major companies. Some of them will be doing entrepreneurship things on the side until they get the good jobs in the companies. And some of them continue to be entrepreneurs, like that's 1/3 each. So we have to, when we say private sector, kind of define that word first in the regions you belong to. And again, Aline can talk about this. And you have to, you know, and again, it's a betting game because you kind of don't know exactly where they're going to work. So the piece when Alex said about experiential learning, you're right. You just want to actually train students to look at problem solving, to look at targeting what's happening around them. Again, governments in these regions, their social responsibility is very huge. You know, there's a priority list, so climate doesn't really take that priority. So how are you going to try to graduate students who work in countries where there's much pressing issues related to social and sides to navigate towards environment? These are all, and it's a private sector talk. It's not like, and that's the whole thing, you advocate in the class how it is your responsibility, how you can do something about it, how there's a business opportunity here if you want to develop some kind of, again, innovative business around this. So beyond, again, inviting and talking and having stakeholder meetings and bring them into the class, If you want to work at that formal level, again, we're lucky within the United Nations Global Compact network that, because again, it's a good or bad. So they're not as big as large country UNGCs. So basically across all Africa, they came together and called themselves Africa Business Leadership Coalition and Africa Regional Hub. And they have also that kind of leadership. So you kind of can do some effort at the top level. And try to reach out to and invite them again to our events, and we sit in their events too. We're very, again, we and Hervé talk all the time, but you need to realize that that only takes part of, the formal corporations and the board of directors, these kind of formally publicly traded companies. But then what happens to the, other firm level? You have to work again with innovation management, with design thinking, with, again, being opening to, as a facilitator in your classroom, to, to widen the scope of what I'm teaching. So if I'm teaching operations or supply chain, and a student wants to talk about something that's not completely in the boundary of that course, again, you need to widen that scope. And a lot of as educators, I think one of the best things we can do is start to really understand what my colleagues are doing, whether in the business school or across interdisciplinary, other sciences schools, and invite them in your classroom. Co-teaching models, I do see. So a good way to answer your question is to invite different stakeholders into your classroom, not just as guest speakers, but to design assignments and final projects around those. It's a long journey. I'd like to look at under the wider umbrella of experiential learning and, curious youth, and again, some kind of, co-op settings where you can actually send students to work for some time in these organizations and come back, tell you the problems, and then we have that kind of interweaving. It's not a one size fits all, makes a big difference where you work. And again, there's a huge employment issue. So if I graduate and kind of push students to be, SDG and green oriented, I have to also work in parallel with these formal institutions to create jobs in those markets that I'm going to graduate my students. You're
We
muted.
can't hear you. Your mic is muted, Felipe. Still can't. Okay, it's working now.
Yes, I had a question, a short one for Sherwat, which is about the role of private foundations in the frameworks that she's designing with peer universities across Africa.
You mean like NGOs, what we call international world organizations? Is that what you mean, or?
Yes.
All right, sure. Yeah, big piece, big player. We have to again play strategically. Not all of them are empowered. Some of them, again, are a very big hiring of our students. So our students kind of, until they get the other jobs, work in NGOs and learn across the way. So in Egypt, they're very active. It depends, again, where you are. So definitely a key stakeholder. And I should have mentioned, you're right. Thank you for bringing that up, Philippe. Actually, definitely one of the key players and stepping stones towards this migration. Sometimes, the triangle goes like this: private sectors bring in the name of an NGO, and then, and then the job is created through that kind of partnership. Because so the pain is, and I led the MBA program in my institution for 4 years. Who graduates a sustainability officer, right? Assuming there's a formal role. So what kind of skill sets or knowledge base does a sustainability officer need in that, right? And then, but then until we graduate those, where are they hiring them from? So basically, Philippe, they're hiring them from students who graduated business schools, know some kind of strategic direction, worked in NGOs, and then are ready, to crop for that job. And it's usually a higher management job. So it's a career choice. You have to look at all the different career paths. It's a business school job to us to see, really know who our stakeholders are, where our students are going to work, and try to train for that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Faris, we are very lucky to have with us this morning a member of the Parliament of Azerbaijan, as well as the Vice President of a university. And therefore, Faris is in a unique position to tell us how can universities and research institutions support government and businesses in creating a knowledge base for sustainable development and the green economy. Faris, we're waiting for your answer.
Thank you so much. Actually, we live in a world where all stakeholders are in constant dialogue, constant communication. We frequently get phone calls from government officials, from government agencies. They're asking universities to get involved with their research, with their advocacy, with their legislation analysis. And also we are providing human resources to them. We are providing alumni, we are providing researchers, we are providing faculty members. Generally, I would like to say that in today's world, the universities are no longer just a place where teaching takes place, but universities are also participants of the community development, city planning, economic development, country's vision. When Azerbaijani government was trying to develop a roadmap for sustainable economic development until 2030, they invited our university to be part of the working groups. So there are many ways that universities get involved, they get invited. We are also working, as I mentioned, with private sector. And I think that in the future, the role of universities will continue growing because universities, you know, they are big enterprises. They have hospitals, they have sport facilities, they have green zones, they have labs. So universities will become more and more involved with governance issues in the future as well.
Yes, yes, indeed. Thank you. My next questions before we receive questions from the audience. My next question will go to Alim Khan, who represents students, of course, as students are at the center of academia. What I would like to learn from him is about his own expectation and the primary expectations from other students about their education and how the preparation we are giving them can meet these expectations and can also meet the demands for leadership in sustainability. What do we need to do better as professors, as educators, as vice presidents or members of the parliament? What do we need to do better to address the needs expressed by students?
Thank you. Thank you for this great and relevant question for me. And I would like to say that students expect their education to provide practical skills, real-world experience, and strong understanding of sustainability issues. For example, for this question, specific actions could be that academia can include integrative experiential learning into the curriculum through internships and hands-on projects, offering workshops and seminars led by industry experts to discuss current trends and challenge in green jobs, and establishing sustainability clubs that engage students in projects aimed at improving campus sustainability initiatives. And in conclusion, I would like to say that after all, educational programs and their relevance into the real world issues is key in this question. Thank you. Sorry, I can't hear.
Yes, thank you for your answer. Could you perhaps be more precise and speak about your own personal experience and your own university? Speak about your frustrations, speak about your challenges, and say what we need to do as professors to help you go beyond the next test and the next exam.
So sometimes professors should be more loyal to youth, to students, because after or mostly we all have like some other activities like activism, for example, like participating in COP29. It will be during my semester. And when the professors are loyal for these questions and actions, this can give us more professional growth in our education.
Yes, thank you. My last question will go to Shakbov. We spoke about water and climate change. Then we had maps of the Aral Sea, which is almost entirely gone yet. And what we see in the Aral Sea is also an example of transboundary cooperation, a desire to go beyond national rivalries and solve a regional issue. And this has resulted in capacity building, the creation of new universities and new programs, new institutes around topics that are really new to science, like water diplomacy. I would like him to answer one question, which is about the ways in which these new institutions in Uzbekistan can serve us as a model to enhance the integration of green skills into curricula. How do the new institutes for advanced international studies is going to meet the needs of local, national, regional, and global markets? We would like Uzbekistan, of course, to become a lighthouse for the entire universe.
All right, thank you, Philip, for the nice, good question. Yes, well, I cannot talk much about this the new university, which I highlighted in my presentation, because that's in the first place a new one. It just started its operations in this year, early in February, in January this year. And yeah, with the diverse courses, etc. So in water diplomacy studies is within the university I'm working, basically, University of World Economy and Diplomacy. This is designed for water for the professionals. So basically, this is a combination of technical skills with diplomatic skills to address the challenges in water challenges in Central Asia. And so water issues has been quite a very dynamic history and very big issue in Central Asia. Maybe you have heard, and you perfectly know this, that water has been a big block barrier to regional cooperation, transboundary cooperation, barrier to even trades, for only even for stopping all kind of relations among countries in Central Asia. So if, for instance, so Central Asian countries got independence in 1990s, and until 2000s, that was kind of a technical issue, and water, I mean, yeah, and from 2000 to 2017, water has been kind of a economic and political issue. So no water relations and no other relations. I mean, no trade, no nothing. Yeah, and that was the case. But since 2017, in the wake of political developments in Uzbekistan, particularly, so situation changed. But water has become kind of issue of safety, which in the sense that, I mean, everybody's always suffering from the decreasing amount of water, under the impact of climate change and mismanagement, all the stuff. And on top of that, you know, the complexity is added by the new by the construction of the Kushtipa Canal in Afghanistan. So Taliban is really pushing forward that project, and we know that Afghanistan is part of this region, and the countries of the region have to work with Afghanistan. And this is basically so this is why we are now the University of World Economy and Diplomacy launching next year specific double degree program in water diplomacy with the TIAMI. TIAMI is one of the institutes, universities in Central Asia in water management, agriculture issues. Because we know that, I mean, so 6 countries, including Afghanistan, we are neighbors, and we have to talk. I mean, we need more diplomacy here, particularly some water diplomacy. And this is why I think very bright time that we are launching this new initiative, opening this specific double degree water diplomacy course. And we will be cooperating with big names in this field, including IG, for instance, Institute for in Delft, in water education, etc. And these are all aligned with the current ongoing so-called economic, political, and all the type of activities in the region. So basically reflects the realities on the ground here in Central Asia. So depending on the needs of the current contemporary issues in Central Asia, we are now just trying to answer all the potential challenges that we are facing today through this our educational initiatives. And of course, this will have impact on overall regional and regional stability, and also contributing to global sustainability issues. I hope I could answer your question, Philippe.
Okay, thank you for your reply. We have a question from the audience. Haya Abdel Ghaffar would like to know what kind of activities do we need to have in order to integrate in business courses solutions to climate issues. And I think that Alex Orp has already answered this question. So maybe, Alex, would you like to repeat yourself and maybe add more details to what you already proposed at your university?
Sure, Felipe, and thanks for the question. It's an excellent question. I can give you some examples from real life, so from my school, from my practice, if you like. And there are a whole range. So at the very micro level, you can do carbon footprinting with students. You can get them to examine their own carbon footprint in their own lives, and they could understand a little bit about their impact on the world and how to mitigate that. At a higher level, one of the things that we do, we have a business clinic for our final year undergraduate and master's students. So what we do there is they come together, they form small consultancies of 4 students or so, overseen by an academic advisor, and they work with a real life client. So the client comes into us, the business school, and says, look, we've got a problem we need to solve. And usually they're an SME or a charitable organization who can't afford that kind of third sector, that commercial consultancy. And we started out doing things like marketing plans and those kind of things that they wanted. But now we're doing things like sustainability audits and assessments. So a business will come to us, they'll say, we need to understand, we need to be a bit more climate kind of conscious. And the students will go in, they'll do carbon life cycle assessment, they'll do carbon footprint for the organization. They'll write a report based on a theory and based on the practice about how that business could actually move some of their practices, supply chain sustainability, waste management, carbon footprinting, all that kind of stuff. And they will present those findings back. And so the client will have a real actionable report of something they can do. The students will have a piece of work that they can then take to them when they go for a job interview, for instance, and say, hey, look at this work I've done there. I've got some real life experience at this, and then that's underpinned by the theory, so they get, which helps with their academic degree. And one more example, we use the MIT En-ROAD simulation tool extensively. I'll pop it in the chat when I finish talking, if you like. It's a free tool by MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and it allows you to pull all the levers that you need, the policy levers that you need to get to a kind of sub 2 degree rise. Temperature rise, and we put them into little groups, and we say, okay, you are the policymakers here, you're the governmental representatives, you are the businesses over here, you're the kind of student stakeholders over here, and they have to come up with a solution to try to solve the climate crisis in that room. And it helps them with their debating skills, it helps them understand negotiation, diplomacy, it helps them understand, cutting population, for instance, does not stop climate change, in the short to medium term or even the long term. So it kind of helps debunk some of those issues. So we use that as a real tool to engage students in the classroom. So that's just a couple of examples, but there are many more we could draw upon.
Yes, thank you. Alim Khan, at the very beginning of our panel, I said that we are all working for you. And now is your turn to give us your feedback. Have we done well? Was this panel useful to you? Is there anything you'd like to criticize, or is there anything you'd like to add as a final word to our work together today?
Okay, thank you for this opportunity as the youth representative. I am also chairman of a student organization, Climate for Us. And in our organization, our main mission and goal is to give young people, students, more knowledge, more opportunities. And I think that this panel session is totally relevant for mission and goals of my student organization, of my point of view on these topics. Yes, thank you. I can hear you. Sorry.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for your nice words. I think this is 9:40. We have respected the time limits that were given to us by the organizers, and I'm quite happy to close this panel. And let's hope that we will meet again at a different conference. We will all participate in COP29, of course. And I'm sure that we will meet again. If you have any interest in getting a publication out of your presentation today, I will be quite happy to help you publish your submission in a peer-reviewed journal. Okay, and now I'll let Brendan Dupré replace me as president of this meeting.
And I'd also like to say thank you very much to our moderator, Felipe. He did an excellent job, and I think that he moderated the panel perfectly. So thank you for your contribution. And I'm sure this won't be the last time we're speaking. And I can say from my institute's perspective, we will indeed follow up with you in regards to your invitation about a peer-reviewed journal, because as we discussed, there will be an outcome document which is produced. And I think that that will have practical applications for governments in Eurasia, but also we can try to use that for academic purposes as well. So thank you very much. I have the difficult task now of trying to summarize all of the great feedback and information we received from our panelists and our keynote speaker. And I will try to do that now, but also to give you a bit of an explanation what an outcome document is, in case the participants are unaware of that. So we had a similar project, which was back in 2021, I believe, during COP26, which was in Glasgow, Scotland. And it was actually a country-level multi-stakeholder consultation for the COP. And we gathered academics, business, international organizations, research institutes to come up with some recommendations, key recommendations that can be taken by the government of Kazakhstan to the COP, which was in Glasgow, Scotland. And so I think that these types of consultations are extremely important to get feedback from broader aspects of civil society that maybe government can sometimes be compartmentalized and kind of lose sight of some of the other key stakeholders that can provide important recommendations to negotiating committees that are going to these international events. So what this basically will be a summarization of our discussions here today. It won't be an exhaustive list of all of the detailed initiatives, networks, and proposals that were given by the panelists. But what it's meant to do is to be more broader recommendations that governments can take as a negotiating platform to COP29 and beyond. And so I will try to summarize a few of the key aspects of what we talked about here today. But also when we share the notes from today's discussion, they will be detailed with these specific initiatives. And then a more general outcome document will be provided to the governments of Eurasia. So you as participants will be receiving both of those. And so once this document is prepared, it will be shared with the co-organizers of the event, meaning UNESCO, the panelists, and other stakeholders like the EU delegation to Kazakhstan for their feedback and contribution. It will be finalized and then submitted probably at the end of October for review and consideration by the governmental representatives. What I would like to summarize here today, I saw maybe three main categories of recommendations based on my notes. One is recommendations for governments and higher educational institutions. The second is recommendations for business collaboration with higher education institutes. And the final one is recommendations from students. And so based in those three main categories, I kind of had some points that I think were important and relevant that we can use to summarize those three categories. So the first one, for recommendations for governments and higher education institutions, it seems like what we're talking about is setting ambitious climate commitments. Number one is to integrate the climate goals by developing national and regional policies that explicitly incorporate ambitious climate targets aligned with the Paris Agreement, and to ensure that education ministries prioritize sustainability in educational frameworks. Mayor Gul spoke about that in quite extensive detail during her presentation. The second one is to have sustainable curriculum development. So to mandate the inclusion of climate change and sustainability topics across all levels of education, from primary to higher education, and also emphasizing the interdisciplinary approach. We heard that also from our student speaker, who mentioned that this is very important and they would like to see more integrated approach to sustainable development goals education in higher education. The fourth one is capacity building for educators, providing professional development for educators on sustainability and climate issues, and enabling them to effectively teach these topics. And the final one, which we heard, is stakeholder engagement. Shakbalz, Sherwat, Alex, and many other of the speakers today talked about the need to talked about their existing platforms and the need to engage higher educational institutes, governments, and students in various types of platforms and networks. So we can summarize by saying, engage in existing platforms in Eurasia for climate change, education, and dialogue, but also to establish new platforms for dialogue among governments, universities, and communities to collaboratively address climate change and share best practices. We also heard that from our representative from the Central Asian Regional Environmental Center. They've been working extensively on climate dialogue with governments in Central Asia. And so those types of platforms need to be prioritized. Their work needs to be supported both financially and in terms of capacity, and to create new ones where that type of information may be lacking. The second one is recommendations for business collaboration with higher educational institutions. What I kind of gathered this is a lot was about accelerating SDGs through partnerships. So point one would be to co-develop applied research projects, encourage businesses to partner with universities on applied research projects that address specific sustainability challenges, providing real-world solutions while fostering innovation. Also, we heard from Yulia. She was speaking about the sustainable supply chain and also the knowledge impact hub that actually my institute has with the Chamber of Commerce of the Republic of Kazakhstan and Birmingham University. That is to upscale and to support academia working with the business sector to solve real world problems linked with sustainable development. The second one is internships and apprenticeships, to develop programs that offer students internship and apprenticeships in sustainable practices within companies, enabling hands-on experience in fostering a culture of sustainability in the workplace. Students really need to be able to attain real-world practice. And I think there's been many discussions about outcome-based learning, learning to do rather than learning to know, skills-based learning. This is something that's really been pushed internationally, because universities in many instances in the past have been teaching very much knowledge-heavy information. And when students graduate from the university, they don't know how to apply it in the real world. And so this skills-based learning is something that is a strong recommendation through apprenticeships and also these internships. The third one is shared resources for sustainability, to create a consortia between businesses and higher education institutions to share resources, knowledge, and technology for achieving the sustainable development goals. I would say the fourth point is corporate sustainability training, encouraging businesses to provide training programs that can help students and recent graduates develop skills needed for sustainable business practices. I think Sherwat and some of what she was mentioning during her presentation is very applicable to that recommendation. And finally, which wasn't really discussed, but I think is very important, and I put this as an additional note, taking my my power as the chairman of this conversation, but to measure things, impact measurement, developing metrics to assess the impact of these collaborations on sustainability outcomes, and to report findings to stakeholders. Very often we have a lot of initiatives, but we're not able to identify or to measure the impact of those initiatives. So I think with concrete indicators of success and measuring performance year by year, we can really make a positive impact on the issues that were discussed during this panel. And third one is recommendations from students. And so I kind of group that into needs and wants of future business leaders and citizens, because not everybody's going to be working in business. Not all the students are going to be working in business. They work in government, civil society organizations. They may be stay-at-home parents, whatever it may be, but they play an important role in the future. So I'd just like to summarize that into 5 key points. One is to focus on green skills training, advocate for higher education institutions to incorporate green skills training into their curricula, ensuring that students are equipped for the green economy. Job readiness programs, request businesses to develop job readiness programs that prepare students for green jobs, focusing on skills and competencies that align with the sustainability goals. Again, that was kind of touched upon in the previous grouping of recommendations, but I think also very important. Involvement in policy development. Alim Khan also talked about that. You know, students need to be engaged in the formulation and development of policies. They need to have a voice in the decisions that we're making, especially as it relates to climate change and sustainability, because they're the ones who are going to be directly impacted by that. However, I would also like to say, you know, being in my early 40s, that all of us here are also directly impacted year by year as we see the dramatic changes that are happening in the world around us because of climate change, social and economic inequalities that are happening. So I think not only we talk about future generations, we talk about us in our generation currently, but still it's very important, you know, as the decades continue, the situation becomes worse and worse. So Ablakan and his cohort are also, it's very important that their voice is heard in policymaking. So in addition to that, I would say there should be some mentorship opportunities. Again, Alim Khan talked about that, about the need for university professors to mentor the students and to promote programs connecting students with industry leaders in sustainability, providing guidance, and also very important networking opportunities. Us as academics or business leaders have a direct ability to support the students finding careers and internships. And we should take that role very seriously, especially as it relates to sustainability and green jobs. And finally, feedback mechanisms. Establish regular feedback channels for students to communicate their needs and aspirations regarding green jobs and skills to both educational institutions as well as businesses. And so that's in summation. I think that's it's an extensive list, but I don't think it's an exhaustive list of what we talked about. And I just would like to reiterate that we're going to have a detailed notes, which was taken during this event. So very specific programs and initiatives that were discussed or recommended will be shared with all of the participants of this event, because we also have the registration. And the outcome document will be slightly more general and geared towards the governmental negotiators going to COP29. So in conclusion, these recommendations aim to foster collaboration among governments, higher education institutions, and businesses to accelerate climate action and achieve sustainable development goals. By prioritizing education, innovation, and active engagement from the next generation, we can create the resilient future that meets the challenges posed by climate change. As we conclude our online event, focused on fostering a multi-stakeholder dialogue across the Eurasian region, it is clear that the shared geographical and cultural connections among our nations create a unique platform for collaboration. Our discussions today have underscored the vital role that responsible business and management education must play in addressing the pressing challenges of climate change. We have heard inspiring insights from academia, businesses, students, civil society, and governmental representatives, each contributing to a rich tapestry of ideas and recommendations. Together, we can cultivate a future where education not only empowers individuals, but also drives sustainable practices that benefit our communities and ecosystems. As we prepare for COP29, let us carry forward the spirit of partnership that has characterized our discussions. The recommendations we developed here should serve as a blueprint for integrating sustainability into business education, ensuring that future leaders are equipped with the knowledge and tools necessary to tackle climate challenges effectively. Thank you all for your engagement and commitment to this critical dialogue, especially our co-organizers, which is Prime Eurasia and Prime Secretariat, as well as the EU delegation to Kazakhstan, Central Asian Regional Environmental Center, Bard College, and everybody else who supported this important dialogue here today. Together, we can forge a path towards a more sustainable and equitable future for the Eurasian region. Let's continue to collaborate, innovate, and inspire action beyond this event, ensuring our voices are heard and our shared interests are addressed in the global arena. So thank you all very much for your participation. And as the chairman of this event, I'm proud to say that we're even 2 minutes before the conclusion of the event. So we're practically right on time, which is unusual for these types of events. So thank you very much all for your contribution. I appreciate it. You know, it's great to see everybody coming together. None of this was financed through any project money. It was all based on people's own initiative and desire to do something useful for the COP. So it shows you also how, you know, people dedicated to trying to do something about these important issues can do it, and can do it with no financial resources. So that's very important for maybe the speakers and moderators of this event, because you know how it works in these types of events. So it's great that you're all here supporting it pro bono and giving your valuable time for such an important issue. So thank you very much. With that, I will conclude. The recording could probably